A Secret Chord is a book, but it's more than a book. It's a testament in poetry and story and art to the struggles and the resilience of its creators, who are teens and young adults whose lives have been altered by incarceration and deportation.
Hello, everyone. I'm Pamela Brewer, welcoming you to this edition of M.E.S.H. M.E.S.H is the place where your mental, emotional, and social health is always on the agenda. And today I am bringing you a really, I think, interesting conversation with Amy Friedman. Amy Friedman, welcome. Amy is a criminal justice advocate, and she is co-founder of the POPs Club, I believe. So, Amy, let's start with what the Pathfinder organization is. I want you to tell me about A Secret Chord. I want you to tell me about POPs. I want you to tell me about a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh, sounds great. And thank you for having me, Dr. Brewer.
I'm delighted.
I did find POPs the Club, co-found POPs the Club, but basically it's an organization that supports teenagers whose lives have been affected by incarceration, deportation, and detention. The Pathfinder Club is what it has transmuted into over a period of 13 years. It's grown. It's now under the auspices of an a larger nonprofit, and growing all over the country, in schools and also in detention centers and also in community groups. And A Secret Chord, every year we publish a book of the writings and the artwork that are created by both the teens in the clubs and graduates, and some volunteers who work with the clubs and teachers. And the idea is to first, the creating of the artwork and the creating of the writing is a healing experience, an empowering experience. But our commitment to them is to show who they are and what they've created and how much they have to tell us. In my work over these years, what I have learned is, most of us, I think, don't really listen to teenagers. And
True.
When we do, when we let them tell us what they know and think and experience and feel, we are enlightened and changed.
And learned so much. But you and I know that there are a lot of people who say, I don't want to talk about it. What's the point? That's not going to change anything. And certainly teenagers will say, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to think about it. But you are saying that there's true value in thinking about it, creating art around it, writing about it. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. And I will say too, this came out of a very personal experience for me. I 100 years ago was a newspaper columnist, and I started going into prisons to write about prison. And long story, very short, I fell in love with and married a man who was in prison, and ended up raising his daughters, who remain my daughters to this day. He and I eventually divorced after 7.5 years. But what I learned from my daughters is, after being stigmatized and shamed
Yes.
by their experience of their father, they had become silent. And, I was a writer, and I believe in speaking our truths. And it was so heart-wrenching to me that my beautiful, amazing, smart, brilliant, lovely daughters felt ashamed of themselves, felt that they couldn't speak about their truths, that they had to pretend they were somebody they weren't, that they couldn't share all this experience and knowledge that they had without being further stigmatized. So, years passed, and I finally, because of being a writer and someone who really does believe in speaking our truths, that is empowering and that is healing. And so I had remarried by then, a man who was a high school teacher. And we decided largely because of the girls, that we were going to try this. We were going to start a club in one high school in Venice, California. That was 2013. And I will tell you, that club, the first day we announced it in school, that it was for any kids whose lives had been affected in any way by incarceration, by detention, by deportation. There were 25 kids in that room the first day, word of mouth. And by 2 months later, there were 35 kids. And it was so glorious because the first thing that happened, there's one little story I'll tell. One 10th grader walks into the room. We always have food. So we had peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Important.
How to get teenagers into a room. And she picked up her sandwich and she sat down. And the second girl who walked into the room looked at her across the room. They looked at each other. They ran into each other's arms. Later that day told us they have been friends since kindergarten. They were in 10th grade. They've been close friends. They had shared all kinds of secrets. What they didn't know was that both of them had fathers who were incarcerated.
That's That's chilling.
Secret.
Mm-hmm. That's really chilling that they never knew.
And in that moment, when they told me that, I just said, okay, we're going to bring, I had no idea what I was doing, but I said to my husband, we're going to bring this to every school in the country, you know. And we started. I did not know how to run a nonprofit. I was a writer, but I learned over time, and thankfully, there is a glorious person who is an actual nonprofit leader named Leticia Longoria Navarro, who runs the Pathfinder network that has taken over and is nurturing these clubs to growth and now serving 5 cities, 12 schools or communities.
That's extraordinary. The book, A Secret Chord, the title is interesting. And as I read bits and pieces of it, the chapters are broken into sharps and flats. Talk about how you organize the different chapters.
Absolutely. Well, we do a book every year. And here's what happens. So I'm now, thankfully, not the executive director. I'm the editor. And so I'm doing what I know how to do. And so work begins to come to me from all these different places. Some of the kids I know, some of them I don't. There are clubs in Oregon, there are clubs in Georgia, there are clubs in New York and in Los Angeles. And what I'm doing is listening and sort of paying attention to see what themes are running through the work. And honestly, every year, something just starts to bubble up to the top. You know, there are moods. I think it just comes from the mood in the country at the time. And so the deadline for this book was about a year plus ago, a year and 4 months ago. And interestingly, I just started to hear music. And over again, it's not sort of on the nose, but so many of the pieces either had a particular rhythm that was just happening again and again, or they were actually literally about music, or they were about listening, or so that's where the theme for this one came from. And A Secret Chord is a line from the song by Leonard Cohen, Hallelujah, that most people know someone's version of Hallelujah. And there's a line that I heard there was a secret chord that David heard and it pleased the Lord. And so that just kept playing over and over and over in my head, that there were these beautiful songs they were singing.
Let me say, forgive me for interrupting you, but I really want to share just a little piece of writing that was in the sharps and flats section. And it's called Finding Light by Tyler Stonebreaker. And oh my goodness, I'm just going to read it. Tyler said, without the Pathfinder Club, he would either be dead or in jail. is this a common theme from the participants? This is so powerful.
Boy, I'm so happy you brought Tyler to the fore. Tyler is a young man who has now graduated from high school just last June, lives in Portland, Oregon, and came when he was, I believe, a ninth grader.
Huh.
And was so shy and sad and had had so many losses in his life. People who had died in prison, people who had been arrested, people who had, disappeared basically, and felt a kind of loneliness and hopelessness. So many kids think they're the only one.
Absolutely. So many people think that.
So many people think that. And they walk into this room and they're surrounded by people who have experiences that are similar or exactly the same, and they fall in love with each other, these kids. I think sometimes when people hear about these clubs, they think, well, isn't it depressing, like talking about prison? And it's so fun and so full of love, and they care for each other. And Tyler, he was really shy about writing in the early days. And he just said, no, nobody wants to hear what I have to say. And he has become, when we did our book last year, he was one of the people who did interviews with us because he had a lot to say.
Amy, I'm going to take a break just for a second. I want to remind folks that you are, in fact, listening to M.E.S.H, and my name is Pamela Brewer, and I am going to encourage you to subscribe to the M.E.S.H YouTube channel. You will be able to get this interview that you're listening to right now and all the interviews that we've done, and I absolutely encourage you to share these interviews with people you care about, because I guarantee you in every single conversation, you're going to hear something and you're going to share it. You're going to want to share it with someone you care about. I'm going to go back to Amy. Amy, I want to ask you about another piece that I read. And the whole book, the artwork, the poetry, the vignettes, I mean, they're just extraordinary. But this one struck me. Many did, but this one in particular. And this is The Last Time I Felt Free by Ghost Muller. I haven't been free since my mom asked for my tooth fairy money for gas. By then I knew I had responsibilities I hadn't even heard of. I get chills just reading that even now. That's extraordinary.
I'm telling you, these kids, I'm almost embarrassed to call them kids because they are like little sages. And Ghost is another one. She's a student in Portland, and she was another one who was I'm not going to say anything. And we do let the youth use pen names or use anonymous also. In some instances, and particularly right in this moment, I think that's really important.
Unfortunately, yes.
Unfortunately, yes. But she just writes and writes and writes now, and yes, that is common. And it's interesting because I will say this, parents and or siblings who can disappoint, but they still love their parent.
Yes.
And that love is really important. So part of writing about them, even when they're writing the sad, hard things that they've experienced, is honoring them and acknowledging them and sort of seeing their own story on paper and understanding it better. I think the way that it's healing is that they learn to have empathy for themselves.
Yes, and others as well. Just like those two who had known each other for so long and yet didn't know such a huge part of their lives. There's just one more that I want to share, and this one is The Point of Loss. I'm trying to see if I can pull up the person's name. The Point of Loss is drawing the line between Act 1 and Act 2, defining the past while illuminating the future. This had to have been written by somebody who's 100 years old. This is not a teenager.
It could, you know what? I'm embarrassed to say I don't remember whose piece it is, but there are some older people who've written in this book. There are some people who work as volunteers. There are some teachers.
This one, let me just interrupt you. This one was written by Owen Kleinhaus.
Oh, he is a kid. He is.
No, he's not.
And actually, he's an old soul.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's an old soul.
Absolutely.
He was either a 9th or 10th grader when he wrote that. And I just finished actually yesterday reading a piece he submitted for next year's book. That he's brilliant. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't have time to read all of the things, obviously, that I read that were so extraordinary. There was one in there about a child dealing with parents who had been deported. And the question, so crisp, how could you do this? How could you do this? It's a question as adults we ask all day long, but we don't think about the fact that children are asking the same question and have the same sort of profound dumbfoundedness, if you will. How can you do this? But with A Secret Chord and with your organization, you have a way to talk about it and share it and not feel so alone. I mean, the work that your organization is doing is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, the question of deportation and the impact. I mean, this year in particular, the kids, the clubs have been bursting with kids.
I would imagine. I mean, just to realize that you can leave your house and you don't know if you're coming back.
That's right.
You don't know if your parents are going to be there.
That's right. That's right.
That's a whole other conversation for another day. But the work is extraordinary. Tell us how folks can learn more about the Pathfinders, about POPs, and about A Secret Chord.
The best way is the website that you see on the screen. It's the pathfinderclub.org. And at the top of that's where you can learn everything about all the clubs that exist, about ways to bring club to your community. And up at the top, there are drop-down menus, and there's one called Publishing, where you can click and see where you can find A Secret Chord and all the other books we've done as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have run out of time, but clearly you have not run out of work that needs to be done. Thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you so much, and thank you for pulling those pieces. I love that you love the book.
Yes,
really
it was wonderful. And again, folks, so thank you, Amy, again. And that's Amy Friedman. The pathfinderclub.org is the place to go to get lots more information. And folks, I want to thank you all again for listening to M.E.S.H. I am here every week. I hope that you are too. I encourage you to subscribe to the M.E.S.H. YouTube channel. It's at M.E.S.H. with Dr. Pamela Brewer. I'll be here next week. I hope you are too. Please share our conversations, this conversation, with people you care about. I'll see you soon. Take care.